Hello, hello, hello. This is Kenny Perkins, aka the Cancer Guy. And today, as I always say, we have another phenomenal guest. And this guest is coming all the way over from UK. And we're talking about a nutritional scientist. Huh? How often do you get to speak to a nutritional scientist? She is an integrative medicine practitioner. She is a food and health writer and consultant. She is the founder of Urban Kitchen. The list goes on and on and on, and I could just continue to brag about her. Please help me to introduce Toral Shah.
Hi, great to be here.
Look at that. So look at that smile. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for joining us here on All Talk Oncology.
It's just great to be talking about these really important topics with people around the world because it's not something that's going away and it affects all of us globally.
Yes. You know, Toro, we grow up and then we hear these cliche things like you are what you eat, right? You know, that you hear something like you can't outwork a bad diet, right? I mean, all these little cliche things. And so here we are now in the realm of the cancer industry, right? And a lot of people are being affected by this horrific disease and the numbers are going up. And so how does diet play a role in what we're seeing today?
I think, you bring up some really interesting points. Now, I think the current statistics are that 1 in 2 of us will be affected in cancer. And actually about 20 years ago, it was 1 in 4. So what's changed in the last 20 years? I mean, our diet has changed a lot in the last 50 years, 40 years, since we've had industrialization and fast food and, we have takeaways and ultra processed food. These are things that we never used to consume before. So we have to wonder whether these are the kind of things that make a difference. I also think that we're just eating less fruit and vegetables than ever before. And we know that from looking at fiber intake, the recommended intake, minimum intake is 30 grams a day. Now, most people in the United States and the UK reach maximum 18 grams. So we're only kind of almost at the halfway mark of what we need to be eating. So all of this is going to make a difference. And I think we're only starting to understand the science. Until about the year 1999 or 2000, we didn't even have that much evidence for how diet can impact cancer development and risk. And now we're starting to gather lots of data from long-term epidemiological studies all over the world, whether that's like the nurses study in the United States, or whether it's the EPIC study in Europe, or whether it's these Shanghai studies. So there's so many such data from all different types of communities around the world. And from that, we can see. And sadly, lung cancer used to be one of the leading kind of global cancers. And now it's been overtaken just recently by breast cancer. And that is really sad.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a shift here, and people don't have the answer. Here in the US, we kind of eat what we want. I mean, there's so much that's accessible to us, right? There's so much, and our choices are endless. And so to have the proper intake of nutrition, what is that? What does that look like? You touched on something that I want to talk about. You talked about fruits and vegetables. How important is that when you're implementing a cancer patient into treatments?
It's so important. I think what's really interesting is that we've forgotten that fruits and vegetables, it sounds really, really basic, but whatever type of diet you go on, any diet you go on that's plant rich, doesn't matter whether it's a Mediterranean or vegan or keto or whatever it is, anyone where you're eating a lot of different vegetables and fruits seems to be a benefit to patients for treatment, for recovery, for beyond. Firstly, we need all the amazing phytochemicals in these colorful fruit and vegetables. And they are all really important for kind of helping our cells to grow in control or out of control cells to be kind of gobbled up, essentially. And it helps to regulate our immune system. One of the most important things that we're starting to understand is our gut microbiome. That is all the beneficial bacteria that live in our gut. Now, that comprises of about 70% of our immune system. And what we're realizing is that if we eat lots of different fruit and vegetables, that actually helps and increases the beneficial bacteria in our gut. Now, we provide them with a home, but they're the ones who digest the fiber for us. And they provide all these amazing metabolites that we can't actually make. So, for example, our gut bacteria make vitamin K. We need that. They're really responsible for making serotonin, the happy hormone. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to understand is that when you have a healthier gut microbiome, by eating all this kind of fruit and vegetables and kind of plant-rich foods, nuts, seeds, legumes, beans, all of those things, then we're getting this healthier gut microbiome, and it's actually helping with treatment. But actually, there's lots of new novel treatments like immunotherapy, which are actually working alongside probiotics and kind of gut health to actually work in a much better way. So that's the kind of exciting science behind it. But when we bring it back to basics, how many of us are eating even the basic 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day? Not many. And I've noticed that when I'm not cooking for myself, it's actually quite hard. So if we're reliant on eating out, quick grabbing things quickly, takeaways, all of that stuff, it's going to be really hard to get the fruit and vegetables we actually require because they're not focusing on that, even with salads and stuff.
You know, it's so true. That's I think that's part of our issue, right? I mean, and you know, I think this happens so quickly too, right? You live in your life. I mean, and we're talking from the viewpoint of a cancer patient. You're living your life and enjoying yourself, and then one day you get hit with a diagnosis, and you come to understand, you know, the lifestyle that you've had before may have affected you and have led up to this. So now you need to make changes. How do you go about doing that? And so, you know, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because when you're getting ready for treatments such as chemotherapy, hormone therapy, radiation therapy, you know, there's certain things that you can and cannot take, right, when it comes to supplements because of the interfering with treatments. What is your thoughts on that? And, you know, how do you prepare for that?
First, I just want to say, thank you for highlighting that, you know, sometimes our lifestyle and our diet does impact our cancer risk. But I also want to say there's no blame. We just didn't know better, all of us. And it can happen just like that. You know, I was eating really well. I was really healthy, I was lean, and I still had breast cancer. But anyway, let's move away from that. And, you know, we know from the World Health Organization that potentially 35% of all cancers have some sort of influence from our diet and lifestyles. But what can we do next? Because that's really the most important thing. And I think rather than cutting things out, let's think about adding things in. Let's make sure we're adding that extra portion of fruit and vegetables at every single meal. Let's really go for a focused food first approach. Let's make sure we're having enough protein, because, you know, when we're having chemotherapy, you know, our cells are being broken down. The bad kind of cancer cells, but also kind of the good cells too. So we want to build those up. So having enough protein is really important. Having fruit and vegetables is really important to make sure we're getting the micronutrients to fuel, you know, fuel us. And I think those are things that we really need to focus on. I think sometimes everyone thinks these days that, cancer patients are often, you know, really sick, and then they can just eat what they want. Yeah, and I think sometimes people are really sick, and if they can only stomach dry biscuits, great, just do that. But I think we also have to remember that if we're not feeling sick, because some of the antiemetic drugs are so much better, then let's try and eat some healthier food. And your taste buds may have changed. So that might be hard. So it may be, I think you have stronger flavor tasting food. So umami, which is like the 5th taste, that savory feeling, that might be really important to add to your fruit and vegetables. Adding soy and sesame seeds and all that stuff might make it taste better. Adding like citrus fruit to your fruit and vegetables, that's going to make it taste better, also make it more bioavailable. Then the other question you asked is about, you know, what to do or not to do with chemotherapy and radiotherapy and all these things. And what we know is that anyone who's had taken antioxidants as a supplement, not as food, often doesn't fare so well in chemotherapy because it stops the chemotherapy from working. So that's one thing we need to be careful of. Not taking kind of high doses of supplements like vitamins A, C and E, all of the things that people might take. The other thing is turmeric and curcumin. It's such a hot topic. It's become like very trendy. And I think people know that it's a really great anti-inflammatory. So they think, cancer might be inflammation, let's take that. But again, that can really interfere with both chemotherapy. And if you had a hormone-based cancer, such as breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and endometrial cancer, you might be on hormone treatment and like moxifan. And taking turmeric can block it. But also so can grapefruit and black cohosh and all sorts of other things, even eating like marmalade. So you need to really be cautious and like get advice from someone who's like a registered dietitian or nutritionist to really help you if you're not sure. Because unfortunately, doctors around the world don't learn about nutrition yet in medical school. There are loads of people campaigning to get it into the curriculum, but they don't always focus on that. So really, we need to go outside. So I'm giving you loads of information, I'm sure.
Tons of information, and, this is for the listeners. I think it's so important for, everyone wants to make that change. Everyone wants to, at that point, make an adjustment. And like you said, there's no judgment as far as what was happening before. We can only control what's happening now. And so what are, you're hearing this thing about Nutrigenomics, right? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, Nutrigenomics. So nutrigenomics is really how our nutrition, and if you look at epigenetics, that's how our lifestyle, and nutrigenomics is how our nutrition interacts with our genes. And it's early days, it's early science, but it's something I'm really passionate about, and it's something I'm training in quite a lot. But what we're starting to understand is that, we all have our DNA, we all have our chromosome, but when you think about cancer and genetics, what you think about is those big gene mutations, which can affect your risk from cancer. So let's take breast cancer, for example. We might think, okay, well, if I've got BRCA1, that's going to change. But there's also, all of us inherit tiny single nucleotide changes. So DNA is like a little coil and is made up of lots of bases. If you think about it, the rungs of a ladder. And some of these pairings, one of the bases could be changed. And that can influence how this particular enzyme or protein works in our body and how the gene works. And our diet can actually switch genes on and off, just as our lifestyle can switch genes on and off. And this is a new field. And to really kind of understand that, we can do nutrigenomic testing to see these small kind of little changes. So for example, and I hope I'm not kind of giving the kind of tagline away, but I've had breast cancer. And one of the things I've looked at is why I've had breast cancer. My mother's had breast cancer. My maternal aunts had breast cancer. Loads of my mom's cousins have had breast cancer, but we don't seem to have any of these big gene mutations. So I started looking at whether there's something going on. And what we know is from familial breast cancer in families like mine, where we don't have a major gene mutation, the latest research has shown that we may have up to 300 of these very small gene mutations. So one of the gene mutations I have, and I haven't tested my mum yet, but I'm working on testing my whole family, because you can learn so much, is that when you, as a woman, we use estrogen, we produce estrogen, we use the estrogen, we then need to break down the estrogen and remove it from our bodies. Now, for me personally, what I know from doing the nutrigenomic testing is that my body breaks down and creates the 4OH version, which is actually much more carcinogenic, i.e. more likely to lead to DNA mutations, which leads to cancer, than the normal version, which is the 2OH version. And kind of elements, but just, I know that my body does that. So I have to do all the diet and lifestyle things to help push it the other way, to help ensure that I'm making more of the 2OH version, because I've had breast cancer 3 times and I'm not really up for doing it again. I'm done. And I'm also interested in how I can use this to help my patients. And so for me, it's about supporting my liver. It's about supporting that whole liver to kind of break down, detoxify things. It's about, making sure that I've got enough hydration and things are moving through my system. There's all sorts of things you can do.
Oh, wow. Toral, I mean, you've just spit out a whole bunch of information to us that is just, it's a lot.
There is a lot. There is a lot.
But you know what? I mean, this is so important, as we go into this, because I think sometimes this gets overlooked. And, we had a physician on the show, Dr. Ash, and he talked about the importance of having proper nutrition for surgery, for chemo, because that can help reduce the breaks that you may have. It can help with the healing process. And so when you think about food and the power that it has on the body, these are very important topics that we need to talk about here. So what do you say to someone when it comes to food, your diet, their lifestyle? How do you go about directing them?
So I think with cancer patients, it depends on kind of really the sort of situation. Are they having surgery first or chemotherapy first? Because that's normally one of the first things. Radiation is normally kind of near the end of the pathway. And I'll say for surgery, we know that eating certain foods helps with healing. So we know that eating more protein helps with healing. Eating more fruits and vegetables provides the vitamin C that helps healing. Having food that's rich with zinc can help with healing wounds. And I think we've got to try and eat all those foods. And, if necessary, if we can't, for example, zinc might be quite hard for people who don't eat seafood or fish or animal-based products, then they may have to supplement. And the thing with chemotherapy is, again, we want to be eating all the right foods, because if our body isn't properly fueled, think about it like a car. If you don't put the right gas in, it's not going to work very well. And this is exactly the same thing. We need to be putting the right gas in to get our body to heal and to kind of stay with the program and to keep going with the treatment. Because if we're losing a lot of weight or we're eating foods that doesn't really sustain us, then we may not be able to tolerate the treatment quite so well. And I think that's quite important. And I think, what do we do then? I think it's not about changing everything, because that's not sustainable. It's about making small changes over a period of time, which you can sustain, like any habit change. I mean, many of you might have read the book by James Clear, Atomic Habits. It's no different with food. Let's try and make things easier. So, for example, don't buy the cookies and the chips and all the junk food and put that in your cupboard. Just don't buy it. And that'll be easier to not eat it. When you go to the grocery store, if you have a delivery, try and get loads of fruit and vegetables and do things like prepare them. Like, I think chopping up carrots, cucumber, peppers, and having hummus ready as a snack is great. Batch cook meals. Get your families to batch cook beautiful meals that you can put in the freezer that you can defrost, like nice kind of chilies with lots of vegetables in them, like nice hearty soups for the winter. Things that are easy for you to digest and to enjoy. Like, let people help you. So I think that's really important. Have a few little simple recipes up your sleeve, like oven baked chicken with vegetables or even salmon, and I think having those sorts of things will make it much more easier. And then when it comes to grocery shopping, and I have spent some time in the United States over the last few years, and try and kind of stick to those aisles, the outer aisles. That's where all the fresh stuff is. The inner aisles is where all the processed stuff is. So try and stick to that, or go to a farmer's market if you can afford it, because sometimes it's actually cheaper and you have much more interesting fruit and vegetables there, better quality. Really kind of looking at all those small things. But I think when you're first diagnosed, don't think suddenly, I'm going to become vegan, I'm going to change everything. Take some time. Think about what you like to eat too, because, there's sometimes you can make healthier versions of those dishes. So for me, like, I'm not going to forgo having a burger and chips, but what I do is I just do a burger, which I made myself, from really good quality, organic, round, meat. And whether it's chicken or turkey or even like, beef sometimes, with lots of my own spices. And then I do oven roasted, like sweet potato, like wedges, and that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be like, I can only eat a salad and I can only eat this. And think about, look towards ethnic food sources, because there's so many good, nutritious, recipes there in all different cultures, and they're full of flavor. And I think sometimes when you're going through treatment, I know my cousin's going through treatment at the moment, and her taste buds have all gone. So we're kind of constantly talking about what she can do to help her taste buds.
Amazing. And someone who has gone through it, you're speaking from experience here. And that's important for the listeners to know that, Toral, not only is she a nutritional scientist, she's someone who has gone through cancer. And these suggestions that she's talking to you are coming from a research space, right? A lot of times people go, well, where does that come from? People are just throwing things out there. This is evidence-based. Would you say that, Toral?
Absolutely. So, I've done some work with the World Cancer Research Fund, which is linked to the American Institute of Cancer Research. And they spend so much time and energy researching people all around the world, what they eat and what can help reduce the risk of cancer. And a lot of the evidence comes from there, particularly from breast cancer. and I talk to a lot of breast cancer patients. But I spend a lot of my time reading science papers. And that's what I was doing last night, trying to look at the latest evidence, because the evidence for dairy and meat is so contentious and changing all the time. So you have to keep on top of it. You have to keep reading. And, as scientists, we're just forever curious. We have to keep learning because, the science is changing and we're learning. And I think understanding from huge groups of people with lots of data, that's going to be help us go forward. So I'm not just saying, this is my personal opinion. I've probably read 1,000 papers and research and worked with all these different charities and organizations to see what exactly can help us. And I think going forward, I think one of the things you've made up is how do people prepare for surgery or chemotherapy? And I think one of the biggest areas of research right now, which I think is fascinating, is nutrition and lifestyle prehabilitation. So it's not just rehabilitation after you've had all the treatment. This is how can you prepare yourself before? Because sometimes we're not ready before to have surgery or treatment, because we may need to look at our kind of weight. We may need to just get our body kind of prepared. And I think that's an area where we don't have as much research yet and much evidence, but I think it's an area I'm definitely involved in some research groups with that work, because that's how we can hopefully help people to withstand, because it's hard having surgery and chemotherapy and radiation therapy and all those things. I had surgery in January 2021, last time for breast cancer, and we not only we're in COVID pandemic and in lockdown, but it was hard. It was like really hard having 9.5 hour surgery and then learning to like walk again and move again, and really wanting to nourish myself with good food. But that doesn't mean you can't eat fun things. You can't go to a birthday party and have cake. It doesn't mean you can't have dessert once in a while. Like, I think it's about 80% of the time, 85% of the time, making really healthy, good choice. What would the healthy version of me choose? And then the rest of the time, enjoy your life, because life is short and life is for living, and food is so much more than fuel. It's about community and celebration and, socializing and being with people. So we need to enjoy it.
Yes. Yes. And it is a social thing, right? I mean, you invite people over for dinner, and why? Because the conversation happens. There's an intimacy with that conversation and the food, and this is the way it's been for centuries on end. And so, being diagnosed with cancer, yes, it is shocking. It is life altering, but try not to overcomplicate it. Right. And, one of the things we look at is the first medicine that you can choose for yourself. They say, let thy food be thy medicine. Do you say that the power of food can affect a person's outcome in their treatments, Toral?
I think what we have to remember is that food is a really big part of the equation for healing and recovery. Food can't cure cancer. And I think we just have to be really clear about that. But what it can do is increase your chance of recovery. It can reduce your risk factors. There are modifiable risk factors. And we know that things like drinking alcohol, eating a diet high in kind of processed and meat and fast food and ultra-processed food can increase your risk of all cancers. We know that in certain cancers, like, eating a diet with not enough fruit and vegetables can make a difference. So, and when we're getting into the more granular states, and I'm thinking, about breast cancer in particular, just because that's my kind of biggest area of kind of work and research and my personal interest, is that, it's getting to the point where we are starting to understand that if we have the evidence show that there's, we can have 2 portions of cruciferous vegetables, that's the broccolis and the cauliflowers and all those sorts of things, and that can help reduce our risk. So let's add all the good stuff in. Then there'll be less space, quite literally, for the bad stuff. So I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely. And thank you for clarifying that, right? I mean, because we don't want to put that out. Oh, food will cure cancer. There's so many things out here that are, deceiving people. But what we want to talk about and what we want to make sure that is clear is that food has a huge impact on how you recover, the energy, and how you live your life. And so we wanted to make sure that this was discussed. And Toral, thank you. Thank you so much for getting in here and just highlighting so many different things about nutrition that a lot of us don't even know, right?
And, I think we're always going to keep learning, and hopefully we're going to be able to keep sharing this information with patients as we learn it. And then people can hopefully choose to eat better. And part of that's cooking better for yourself, making a difference.
Now, talk to us a little bit. It says, because you're the founder of Urban Kitchen. What is Urban Kitchen? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So Urban Kitchen is really a consultancy. It's just the name I created for myself, because what I realized was that I love cooking and I love food, but I'm also really, work in nutrition. And when we live in a city like London or really anywhere, it is about being urban. It's not the same as, having this idyllic lifestyle where you're, by a farm and you're picking and growing your own vegetables. It's not, life is not like that. I mean, in an ideal world it would be. But, I go to the store, I go to the market and I buy food. So it was really just kind of integrating the kind of eating and the food and the enjoyment part with the kind of nutrition part. And it just felt like the right name for the consultancy. But I do see patients on a one-on-one basis. I also run courses. For example, today we're running a course that starts this evening on breast cancer and how to support women and non-binary folk who've been through breast cancer or are going through treatment with how to help themselves, again, with diet and lifestyle, because it's so important with recovery. And it's not just the food, it's also the sleep, the exercise, you're all about the kind of environment, the stresses of life. So those are all the kind of things that I talk about at Urban Kitchen, whether it's with one-to-one patients or groups, or whether it's consulting for a brand or something like that.
Yes. And how important is it we don't talk about that enough, I don't believe, right? We don't talk about sleep enough and rest and letting your body heal. How important is that? Because we're talking about nutrition, which is great. You put great foods into your body, but then what do you do with that body as far as getting rest? How important is that?
I think sleep is so much more important. I think in the Western world, we've become like, oh, you sleep when you're dead, but don't. Sleep is super important for our healing, our deep healing and recovery, for our physical body, but also for our brain too. And I'm not just talking about our mental health, but quite literally our brain. This is when, all the little molecules go around your brain, kind of hoover up all the rubbish. And I think that's really, really important. And the actual kind of deep healing, we know from research that there's 3 layers of sleep. There's like the deep sleep, the REM sleep, which is the rapid eye movement sleep, and then kind of the light sleep. And the deep sleep's where some of the deeper healing occur, like the physical healing. And I noticed from my own sleep patterns, I wear an Oura ring, which basically measures your, all your layers of sleep. And I've noticed that when I had the surgery, I was in so much pain that I wasn't comfortable, so I couldn't sleep. Then I had the radiation therapy, and then I was burnt, so I couldn't sleep. And then I was having the hormone treatment, and it was just suddenly my temperature so up and down, I couldn't sleep very well. So I've really been focusing on sleep over the last year on a personal level, and also and I've been working with patients on sleep for many years, but really trying to understand the different layers. And what I've noticed is if you have more daylight, more access to daylight in a day, then that improves your sleep. It resets your circadian rhythms. If you see the beautiful colors of the sunrise, the sunset, actually in your eyes, photoreceptors, which can kind of register these beautiful colors and actually give your mind messages to release like sleep hormone. So sleep's just really, really important. And what we do around sleep, the sleep hygiene, is really, really important to helping us to sleep better. And what I've noticed is that in the last, I think, 6 weeks, the last month, I've had the best sleep I've ever had. And it's just really by understanding it. And I really want patients to have the opportunity, because there are so many moments when you can't sleep, particularly in hospital, because they're waking you up every hour. But when you return home and you're at home and you've had treatment, how do you make up for the sleep? So maybe you need to have a nap if you can't sleep during night. Do you need to cool your bedroom? Do you need to think about pain relief? All of these things make a difference.
Yes. Wow. Toral, you're on here dropping gems today. It's amazing. We need that. We need better nutrition. We need more sleep, and take care of our bodies, right? We only get one, right? We got to take care of this thing, And so thank you so much for explaining all of this. And before I let you go here, what is something that you would like those that are listening out there to know? What is something that you want them to take away from this?
So I'm going to say two things, if that's okay. One is it's not easy time, but remember, this too shall pass. And at some point, even though it feels impossible and very far away, you will be at the other end of the treatment and healing process, and you'll be a different person. It'll be a new normal. The second thing is please just eat more fruits and vegetables. Think about eating the rainbow. Try and eat one color from each color of the rainbow every day, and that should take care of your nutritional needs.
Awesome. Awesome. Toral, thank you so much. It's been a privilege to have you here on All Talk Oncology, and please come again. And it's been an honor.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to talking to you again.
So again, I want to thank Toral Shah for joining us here at All Talk Oncology. And she dropped so many gems, and I hope you picked up on them. One of the things she talked about was during surgery, what are some things that you can do to help the healing process? And she said, make sure that your foods and your diet includes protein, right? Because protein helps with the healing process. And not only that, she said, also try to find things that are rich in zinc, because again, that helps with recovery and getting you through, right? So important, so important. Another gem she dropped was about eating the proper foods, right? And she says fruits and vegetables are so important, right? We don't have enough of them in our diet. And so is there a way that we can implement fruits and vegetables into our diet? And she says, try your best to try to eat a different color of fruit and vegetables each day, like coming from a rainbow, right? And make that enriched into your diet. And she says, some of the things you can do is make it fun. Invite family over and friends, and maybe help prepare food for the week. And there's so much joy that happens in the kitchen. And I don't know, it's just that's the meeting place. Food is social. So utilize that time to prepare foods and different fruits and vegetables for you and your family throughout the week. And that is a change. And sometimes it's the small things, right? We don't have to do things so major. We can take these little small adjustments and make a huge impact on ourselves, right? Another gem that she discussed was about getting the rest, right? Sometimes we don't rest enough, and especially if you're in pain, right? If you've had surgery or you can't sleep. In her case, she talked about the radiation. She talked about having her surgery and how she wasn't able to sleep. And that could be the case. One of the things that you want to make sure you do have if you can't sleep because of pain is having the right medication that can help you reduce that pain. In addition to the pain medication, she talked about if you're not getting enough sleep throughout the night, can you take naps throughout the day, right? But allow your body a chance to heal. Give it a chance to recover from what you've gone through. And I thought that was super important. And, I love the way she talked about, 80% of the time, do your best to eat a healthy diet, right? Try to eat good 80% of the time. And she says, take the foods that you do enjoy, right? And make a healthy version of them, make a healthy version of the foods you like. But the rest of the time, enjoy life, because life is short. And I love the way she brought that balance. And so, again, we want to thank Toral Shah for joining us here at All Talk Oncology. And we'd like to thank you, the listener, for joining in to hear All Talk Oncology, because here is where you'll find up-to-date discussions with industry experts and leading professionals that can help you on your cancer journey. You're not alone in this. We're in this together. My name is Kenny Perkins, AKA your cancer guy. Until again, I'm out.